We had just finished eating, laughter still echoing from dessert. It was our usual family recess time, where we'd sit around sipping tea and teasing each other over old memories. But this time, Mom's face had that odd look, the one she wore when something heavy sat on her chest. She cleared her throat, and without warning, said, "It's time I tell you the truth about what really happened that night." The room fell silent. My sister dropped her cup. My brother leaned forward. And Dad? He just stared at her. Then he whispered, cold and stunned, "Oh, so it's you." Everything changed after that moment. Before we dive into the story, we'll love to thank you for your continued support to this channel. If you enjoy this story and stories like this, kindly subscribe and hit on the notification button so you don't miss any of our stories. We will love to hear from you also. Tell us where you're watching from in the comment section. We'll love to give you a shout out in our next video. Now let's begin. Dinner that evening felt just like any other. The table was full, the food was warm, and the air was light with laughter and clinking glasses. My siblings and I had gathered at my parents' home for what had become a tradition, Sunday dinner, followed by what we jokingly called family recess time. It was that moment after dessert when the conversation would drift from playful teasing to shared memories and little confessions that never left the living room. It was comforting in a way that made you forget that time had passed or that the world outside existed. My brother, Marcus, was telling the same story he always did about how he once got away with skipping school by faking a nosebleed with ketchup. Dad chuckled like he hadn't heard it 1,000 times before, and even Mom smiled faintly while passing around the last slices of her famous peach cobbler. My younger sister, Natalie, sat beside me, her hand resting gently on her fiancé's leg, while I cradled a mug of tea, barely noticing it growing cold in my hand. I kept thinking, this is peace. This is one of those quiet chapters in life that makes you forget that anything ever goes wrong. It wasn't until everyone had pushed their plates away and sunk into the backs of their chairs that the shift happened. That subtle pause. That moment where silence enters not like an absence, but like a warning. Mom cleared her throat. Not the way she usually did when preparing to ask someone to help with dishes or remind Marcus not to swear in front of Grandma. This time it was sharp, like she had swallowed something painful and it was fighting to come out. I looked at her. So did Dad. Her eyes weren't focused on any of us. They were somewhere else, maybe in the past, or maybe staring down something she couldn't hold in anymore. "I've been holding on to something for years," she said. And just like that, the air was sucked from the room. Marcus's grin faded. Natalie stopped mid-laugh. Even her fiancé, who didn't know our family rhythms all that well, seemed to realize that this was no ordinary segue into another family anecdote. Mom set her hands flat on the table. Her fingers trembled slightly. "And it's time you all knew the truth about what really happened that night." I didn't know what night she meant. My mind jumped from one possibility to another. Old family dramas. Whispers I had overheard as a child. Things that were quickly dismissed with a "you're too young to understand." But none of them quite prepared me for the way my father looked at her. His eyes narrowed, not in confusion, but in recognition. As if he had waited for this moment for a very long time. As if he had suspected. Marcus leaned forward. "What are you talking about, Mom?" She looked down, then up again. Her voice faltered, but she pushed through. "The night your Uncle Ben died. It wasn't the way you were told." A chill moved through me so fast, I nearly dropped my mug. Uncle Ben's death had always been painted as an accident. A tragic house fire. Faulty wiring. That's what we were told when we were younger. And we never asked again. Because grief was sacred in our home. No one questioned it. No one dug deeper. Until now. Natalie's voice cracked. "What do you mean it wasn't an accident?" Mom didn't respond right away. Her lips parted, but the words wouldn't come. It was Dad who finally broke the tension, his voice a low murmur, half in disbelief, half in something I couldn't yet name. He looked her dead in the eye, as if everything suddenly made sense. Then, without raising his voice, Without even looking at the rest of us, he said 6 words that tore through the calm like a blade. "Oh, so it's you." My father's words froze time. The peace that had wrapped itself around us just moments earlier now felt like a cruel joke. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the ticking wall clock seemed to hesitate, waiting for what would come next. My mother didn't deny it. She didn't scream or cry or plead. She simply sat there, shoulders bowed slightly, her eyes wet, her voice steady yet hollow, as she said, "Yes, it was me." Natalie gasped, covering her mouth. Marcus stood so quickly his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "What do you mean you? You what? Are you saying you killed Uncle Ben?" His voice was raw, torn between disbelief and panic. But Mom didn't flinch. She reached for the table's edge like she needed it to anchor her to the moment, and she spoke in a way that suggested she had rehearsed this in her mind for decades. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I was arguing with Ben that night. We had both been drinking. It got heated. He said something awful about your father, about this family. I pushed him. He stumbled back. He hit his head. There was blood. And then the fire started. I panicked. I ran." Marcus shouted, "You ran? You left him to die?" "I was terrified," she screamed. "I didn't light the fire. But I didn't call for help either. I just left. I told your father when I got home that I found out about the fire later. And we let the story spread that it was a wiring issue. We buried the rest. But I've lived with the guilt every day since." I couldn't look at her. My hands were trembling. Natalie stood now too, backing away slowly like the table had become something toxic. "You lied to us our whole lives. We mourned him. We visited his grave every year, Mom. And you stood there with us like nothing happened." Dad's silence was louder than any of our shouting. His face was gray, his jaw clenched, his eyes bloodshot with emotion held in check for too long. "I suspected it," he finally said. "The way you came home that night. You were shaking, your shoes were wet with mud, your hands smelled like smoke. I didn't want to believe it. I asked you, do you remember? You said you weren't there. And I let myself believe you." Mom stared at him. "I was afraid I'd lose everything. You, the kids. I kept quiet, and you let me." Dad shook his head slowly. "No, I didn't let you. I just didn't stop you. There's a difference." Marcus had walked away to the far end of the room, hands in his hair, pacing, muttering. Natalie sat back down, staring blankly at nothing. I sat frozen, thinking about all the holidays we had spent pretending we were a perfect family. And now this horror beneath it all, had been breathing in the walls the whole time. "I was going to take it to my grave," Mom whispered. But it didn't feel like bravery. It felt like control. Like she was choosing the time and place to finally release the truth on her terms. And we had no say in the fallout. The days after that dinner blurred together. Marcus refused to return Mom's calls. Natalie moved back in with me, saying she couldn't sleep in the house she grew up in. Dad went silent. For 2 full weeks, he said nothing to anyone. Then, on a quiet Friday morning, he called us to meet at the lawyer's office. When we got there, we found out why. "I've made changes," Dad said flatly, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. "Your mother and I signed a family trust years ago. Half of everything we owned was meant to go to you 3 equally. But given the truth, I've revised my portion." He looked at us. "Your mother will get nothing more from me. Her share goes into a fund to honor Ben's name. Scholarships, donations to burn centers. Something to undo what we let happen. If any of you want to cut ties with her, I won't stop you. But if any of you want to forgive her, I won't stop that either. I just won't forget." Mom sat alone at the edge of the room. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just nodded. Maybe for the first time, she understood that her silence had written a story none of us asked to be part of. In the weeks that followed, we each dealt with it in our own way. Marcus left town for a while. Natalie went back to therapy. As for me, I visited Uncle Ben's grave. I sat there for hours, trying to imagine the truth under the lies. And I realized something. Secrets like that don't stay buried. They grow, like roots cracking through cement, until one day the whole foundation crumbles. At our next family gathering, smaller now, quieter, I looked across the room and saw my mother. She smiled at me faintly, but I didn't smile back. Some wounds don't heal. Some truths don't set you free. They just show you who people really are. So when people ask me why we don't do big family dinners anymore, I just say this: because one night, after dessert, the truth got served. And it shattered everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful tale. What would you have done if your mother revealed a secret like that? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Until next time, stay curious and stay listening. See you in the next story.